Hello and welcome to All About Comics. Thank you guys for tuning in. And of course, tonight, as always, got Pope G with me. But not just Pope G.
Not just me.
Who do we have with us tonight?
We have a very special guest, a good friend of mine. Went to college with him, and have a very special guest.
Technical difficulties. Repeat the form.
Yeah, never fails, never fails. Turn the volume down on the YouTube. But I have Wes Gift.
That way, there you go.
And he is about to do a Kickstarter, which launches tomorrow, of Hard Justice.
I just realized it's on his shirt too.
That's right.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So launching tomorrow at 12:30 Eastern time?
Yes, 12:30 Eastern time tomorrow, March 1st.
Awesome. So 12:30 p.m. No, yeah, afternoon.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. I'm trying to do the math here in my head. I'm like, wait a second, that's only a couple hours away. But no. Afternoon time. Cool. So I don't know if Sean, if you have a bunch of questions you're going to spring on him, but I personally, after looking over the material that I was sent, I find it pretty exciting just because it's so reminiscent of my childhood and everything that I loved as a young male. So, but anyways, I'll let you guys kind of talk about it and, share whatever you'd like to share.
All right, cool. Well, first off, how did you come up with this idea? What is Hard Justice?
What is Hard Justice? Well, first off, thank you both for having me on the show. Been a fan for a while. Enjoy all the cool things you guys do and put out. So, Hard Justice is the story of two guys, Saint and Rex, who, when crime starts to run rampant in their city of Paradise Bay, they decide to take matters into their own hands and to stop crime with their fists. So it's in, like JP was talking about. I'm also an 80s, 90s kid. Grew up with 80s action movies and old school NES, Super Nintendo, side-scrolling beat-em-up games. And I basically took elements of both of those mediums and put it into Hard Justice.
Sweet.
Yeah, I love that. I definitely, I know I've talked with Wes a lot about this. And I especially, like, Wes has given me a lot of insight about, like, what goes into writing a comic book, too. Like, he took some awesome classes, if he wants to indulge in that. But, I've also read other things that he's done, and they've been freaking awesome. So I'm super excited to see what we have in store. I've gotten sneak peeks just because I have those close friend privileges, I guess. But I've been super stoked. So I guess let's start at. So do you want to talk about any backgrounds about some of the certain characters?
Sure. So you mentioned me starting off as a writer. Back in 2020, I decided I've written things, different genres, different mediums my entire life. But in 2020, I decided I wanted to write a comic book. So I took a comic book writing class through the Jacob Kruger Studio online. And it was a comic book writing class taught by Ron Mars, which, if you know Ron Mars, he's a very prolific writer. He's written basically for every publisher. Of course, my favorite thing he did was the Green Lantern run of the 90s. But Ron taught that class, and it was helpful because he really went over the format of here's how you write a comic script for an artist to then take and then create the visuals for. So I did that in 2020. In his class, you write a 6-page story, because in his words, if you can write a complete story, a complete comic book story in 6 pages, then you can do one in 8 pages. You can do one in 12. You can do a full book. So after his class, I wrote a few comic shorts. And then Hard Justice is the first full-length comic book I've written. So that's kind of how I got started. Is I just decided I wanted to take a class, and I was actually on Twitter because I follow Ron Mars, and he shared something about, hey, I'm teaching a class, and I was like, I'm there. So
Smart move. That's a good one to follow for sure, because he's been in the business a long time.
yep. And in fact, he explained that he learned how to write comics from Jim Starlin. So Ron Mars's method of writing is the Jim Starlin method. So in a roundabout way, my writing style is the Jim Starlin way. So
We do things the Jim Starlin way.
right.
Does it involve psychedelics?
I think that's Steranko.
Oh, is that Stranko? Jim Starlin. What did Jim? No, that was Jim Shooter. So what's Jim Starling? What's his?
Infinity Gauntlet.
Okay, that's where my head was at. But I'm like,
Creator
oh,
of
okay, that's
Thanos
wrong.
and Drax and
Actually, yeah.
Yeah.
I just picked up this bad boy. So,
oh,
and that's a Starlin. Sorry, I don't want to steal away from Wes, but
no, you're good.
we're
Man.
gonna name drop.
That's
Right,
right.
right.
That's right.
What's up, Hazel Dan?
Welcome.
Hazel Dan says, "Hey guys."
Yeah, I don't know, Wes, if you're able to see the chat. I don't know how it looks on your end, but if you see any questions or anything that comes through you want to address, have at it.
Oh, there it is. I just flipped it on.
There you go.
What's up, Hazel Dan?
So, anyways, I realized I kind of chased a rabbit there, but that's what I do.
Rabbit chasing.
Yeah. So you took the online class, which is, I didn't even know it was a thing, because I've been trying to figure this out for years, how to write like cohesively, not I can write, we can all write, but it's like putting something together, is totally different. Comics are just different. But yeah, it's
its own beast.
It is, because you see a lot of crossover people, right? Like there for a while you had like was it Brian K. Vaughan who writes novels? So is that right?
I know Tom King started off writing a novel or two, and then he came over. So, and then I think like you see some crossover with screenwriters or even actors, like Paul Dano, who was Riddler in the new Batman. He wrote an issue of the Riddler for DC Comics like in the past year. So
sweet.
I didn't know if you were coughing or if you were under your breath. I was confused.
You were confused?
Yep.
All right, so with Hard Justice, so you took a class and you dove into your first comic book. Now, I mean, I don't want to know how far you want to get with talking about the comic book itself as far as characters, like their backgrounds, and like if you want to lay out how much of the story you want to lay out. Or
sure, yeah. So yeah. I took going back to Ron Mars's class. I did a 6-page story, and I had the idea that I wanted to write a bunch of short stories to kind of build up a portfolio and show range. Is like I can do romance, I can do comedy, I can do action, I can do fantasy, and so originally the two characters, Saint and Rex, had their own separate 5-page comic story. Okay. And 2 years ago, or no, yeah, it's been 2 years ago now because we're in 2023. Got to do my math. I went to a show in Huntington, West Virginia, and Kyle Starks was a guest there. And Kyle Starks is another writer I really admire. I've read a bunch of his stuff. But I saw him at the show and I asked him, I said, I want to get into the industry as a writer. What's the one piece of advice you can give me? And he spent the next 30 minutes outlining step by step everything I needed to do as a new person, as a writer, how to get started in the comic book industry. To sum it up, he basically said, you need to create a whole book and to show publishers, I can create a comic book from start to finish. So when he said that, I looked at, kind of like the scripts I had, and I looked at the script with Saint, and I looked at the script with Rex, and I basically put them together. I put them together, and then once I put them together, I was like, okay, what's the rest of the story now that I've got these two heroes who basically want to achieve the same thing, but they have two different ways of going about it. So when you read Hard Justice, the first 5 pages is Saint's story that I originally wrote. The second 5 pages, so I guess 6 through 10 or whatever, 6 through 10 is Rex's story. And then after page 10, we get into, okay, here's how these two collide in this world to go after this one particular person. So the book itself is going to, when it's all said and done, the book itself is going to be 33 pages. So it's bigger than a traditional comic book of like 22, 24 pages. So we really put in a lot of story in this first issue, but our plan is to do 5 issues total. So not only were we doing a lot of introduction into these two characters, but also the world itself that they inhabit.
Very cool.
You answered 3 questions I already had, so
okay.
I can right out of the park. That was awesome. That was a good flow to it. So I guess for me, why comics?
Why comics? Well, as a writer, it was a challenge because I'd never tackled the genre before. One thing about, I really admire comics because I'm a writer. I have no artistic ability. Okay.
Same.
So I really enjoy seeing what happens when I put something into words or put it into writing, but then give it to somebody else and say, okay, here's what I envision. Now, can you bring this to life? And that's really why I like comics. It's just that aspect of collaborating with other talented individuals and working together to make something tangible that people can hold in their hands. They can read it, but they can also admire it for the artistic aesthetic. So I really didn't get into comics until my late 20s, and actually Sean was instrumental in that. Pope G right there. But then, once I got the comic bug, I started off as an avid reader, as an avid collector, and then eventually I was like, you know what? I want to write a comic. As much as I enjoy reading and collecting these books, I want to write one myself. So.
Yeah, so all those stories you ever heard of me, like saying that I probably went off somewhere with a friend to go like hunt comics. I was riding shotgun with Wes.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
All right, so you speak about talent. So you want to talk a little bit about who's going to be going to do the art in your book?
Yes, because obviously I did not do this by myself. So when it came to finding a team to make this happen, I've got a buddy named Bryce O'Quay, and I think in 2018, 2019, Bryce and another mutual friend of ours, Ken, did a book called Warden's Watch, and it's a fantasy action story. It's what was the first issue that they did. But when I picked this book up, I knew Bryce and Ken a little bit, but I picked this book up and I really, really admired Bryce's style of art, where he does a great job of capturing such big dynamic action, in a still image. And I thought, that pairs well with a story like Hard Justice, because there's a lot of hand-to-hand combat, a lot of martial arts. Okay, so I want to capture all these epic movements, but of course it's in a picture. Okay, we're not going to be filming this and turning it into a video or a movie. So before I actually reached out to Bryce about doing the art, I reached out to another mutual friend of ours, a buddy named Sean Pryor, who is also, he's a comic book writer, but I reached out to him and I was like, hey, what are the chances you could read over the script and give me feedback? So he read the story and gave me feedback, gave me notes. I made revisions. So then I had a final draft. And then I sat down with Bryce one day and I said, hey, man, I got this script. I would like for you to be the artist behind it. And he read it and fell in love with it. And he said, let's do this. So Bryce is the artist. Our buddy Sean Pryor is the editor in the book. And then I want to talk about lettering because uh,
Nobody talks about lettering.
well, yeah, that's true. Nobody talks about lettering. It's definitely an art form within the whole realm of comics that does not get enough attention that it deserves. So, when it came to lettering, I will admit that I was one of those idiots who looked at lettering. And of course, lettering is the text, the dialogue, the captions, the balloons on a page, and the tails, and pointing to different characters and the sound effects or whatnot. I was one of those idiots that looked at that, and I found out that lettering is usually, or one of the programs that's used is Adobe Illustrator. And I was like, I know a little bit about Illustrator. I could letter a comic book. That's no problem. And then I was like, well, maybe I should do some reading up on this first. So I bought a textbook by Nate Picos. I think that's his last name, Picos. He's lettered for a bunch of books. He's lettering the second volume of I Hate Fairyland right now. But I got his textbook and I started reading through it, and I was like, you know what? I may have bit off a whole lot more than I could chew. I can do it, but not only is it an art form, there's also a science behind it you have to understand. And I was like, this is going to be way too much. I could probably letter it if I had another year to just focus on lettering, and I don't have that time. So I follow a letterer on Twitter named Taylor Esposito, and Taylor he's taught at the Joe Kubert School in the New England area. He's taught there as a letterer for years. He was on staff for DC for a few years too. But I interacted with him a little bit on Twitter. But I reached out one day and I was like, hey man, what are the chances? Because he's a freelance letterer right now. And I said, what are the chances, you would letter a comic book I want to back or put up on Kickstarter? And so he was open to the idea, and I shared with him, some details about the project, and we discussed, rates, because, if you're good at something, don't do it for free. But he agreed to do it. So Esposito is on board as our letterer. So it's going to be professionally lettered. Thank goodness. You won't see any terrible lettering skills. So, but yeah, again, as a writer, I only have one thing I can do on this project, and I needed to reach out to other people to make it happen. So I just basically reached out to those around me, and then reached out to people who knew a whole lot more than I did on it to make this happen.
Well, certainly more than I knew. That's for sure. That's
yeah.
No, I mean, you never know. Like you said, I would assume the same thing. Like, oh, I can do that myself. But
yeah,
clearly.
I thought you were going to say I looked up a YouTube video about.
Well, and actually, the story I wrote for Ron Mars's class was a 6-page war story. I had a friend do all the artwork, and then he gave me the finished pages, and I lettered that one myself, and I thought it was like the coolest thing. And then, knowing what I know now, when I go back and look at it, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is awful. This is terrible. This is the completely wrong way to letter a comic book. So, but it was a learning experience. So
that's really interesting. I'm glad we're having this talk, because I remember, one time Pope and I, we had was it CBI Press or whatever? We had the whole team on a show with us, and they brought everyone on, like everyone that touched the book, they came on.
Wow.
And it was like, you see the credits in a comic book, but you don't realize who all has to touch that for it to go into fruition. So it's pretty cool insight, because the letterer, the unsung hero of comics, right?
That's the perfect way to put it, JP, the unsung hero. Because the story could be great, the art could be amazing, but if the lettering is bad or off, it completely ruins the whole experience of reading a comic book. So
very cool. All you letterers out there, don't give up.
That's right. Keep practicing.
That's funny. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was blown away just by listening to you, because I'm like, oh my gosh, like you don't really think about that piece, like literally you don't think about that. You see the art, you see the words, and you're like, oh yeah, this is a great comic book, but
Yeah.
it can't be without others. That's really cool. So, all right, carry on.
So with your Kickstarter going to be starting pretty soon, what could we look forward to seeing or being able to purchase, or should I say like the special perks of getting
Special perks.
The rewards.
The rewards. So with the rewards that we have planned, so a little bit more about the book. It will be 33 pages of story. We've got 3 other pages we're going to play around with for other content. It is going to be in black and white. We've got the physical book itself, obviously. The physical book. We also, and actually, let me show you this. So this is the flyer for Hard Justice right there. But the front of this flyer, that's going to be the cover of our book. Okay. And if you look closely, I don't know if I have an example over here. I don't. Okay. But Bryce did the cover. Bryce did the cover for issue 1, the regular cover. And this is an homage to Double Dragon 2. That's kind of the style we went with there. And then so we've got the regular cover. We also have a variant cover, which was drawn by artist Justin Stewart. And the variant cover, let's see if I have.
Oh, this variant cover is fucking sweet.
Oh, it is. Here we go. So if you've played this game, you might recognize our variant cover, but the variant cover is an homage to the first Double Dragon game. So we've got the regular cover, we got the variant cover. We also have die cut stickers of our logo. So there's a Hard Justice die cut sticker. We've got stickers. We also have pinups. I've got a pinup by Jake Smith, who is currently kickstarting. If I could plug this, he's currently kickstarting Blood Force Trauma issue 7, which if you're not familiar with Blood Force Trauma, I highly recommend you check it out.
That's just a good title.
Yeah. It was an excellent title, excellent book. But Jake's style is one that just blows my mind every time I read a new issue of Blood Force Trauma. But Jake was kind enough to do a pinup for us, so we have a pinup from Jake. We also have Hard Justice pins. These are small acrylic pins, but sorry, I'm trying to find my camera. There it is. But we got stickers, pinups. We also have a pinup. 80s action movies. If you've ever seen the movie Tango and Cash, and that movie poster, we have a pinup that's an homage to Tango and Cash as another reward.
That's an excellent one.
Oh, and I completely forgot. I don't have any here, but we also have trading cards. We've got 2 trading cards that'll be offered in a 2-pack. We've got a trading card of Saint and one of Rex. So my buddy Jay Hammond, if he watches this, he's probably gonna be mad that I forgot him. Sorry, James. But Jay Hammond did the trading cards for us. So we've got stickers, pinups, trading cards, which will be available as rewards and as add-ons. So if you want to opt for one of the lower rewards, but then get an add-on of something else, you can. And then as an add-on, we will have Hard Justice t-shirts available. So if you want to spring for one of those and show off that you appreciate Hard Justice and just justice in general,
I appreciate Hard Justice.
Oh, and if I may, unfortunately, we could not offer this as a Kickstarter because of Kickstarter's policies. But however, we're looking at having some of these available for conventions because after we get issue 1 finished, Bryce and I have plans to set up at conventions and sell copies of issue 1. But then again, we want to do 5 issues, so we want to promote the next ones. But a buddy of mine made a custom Hard Justice set of Metro Busters. So this is 3D printed, but if you look closely, it says hard.
Is that like brass knuckles? Is that what that is?
Yes.
Oh my god.
So if you really want to teach someone a lesson,
that's right.
So, but yeah, unfortunately, Kickstarter has a policy where
Yes, the brass knuckles.
you
They
can't
draw the
have,
line there, huh?
your Kickstarter cannot have weapons or weapon replicas, because I actually sent a bunch of detailed photos of this to Kickstarter and talked back and forth with support, and I was like, I mean, technically it's plastic. If you hit somebody, it would hurt, but it's just a it's not a real brass knuckle. They're like, no, you can't do that. And I was like, what if I shrunk it down in keychain size? And they're like, no, you can't do that either. And I was like, okay, no hard justice knuckle
How
justice
about a
for
mate?
Kickstarter.
Like,
You'll have a bunch of people with tiny hands beating people up.
Right.
Hey,
So
we got
maybe-
Chat Comics. What's
Maybe
up,
if you catch, maybe if you catch me at a show, I might have some I can tell you, but not on Kickstarter, unfortunately.
So
So
this is going to be the rarest collectible that you can get with this
Exactly.
Kickstarter / backdoor Kickstarter.
right, you have to find
the
me in
backdoor
person.
Kickstarter?
Backdoor Kickstarter.
Oh gosh, that's awesome! Like that's, I love how much you've gone into. Like you went all out on these rewards. Like that's, the standard Kickstarter reward involves a bookmark or a sticker, of course, but you got some pretty sweet stuff going on there.
Thank you. Yeah, this is. I'll tell you, this is my very first Kickstarter ever. Like you, JP, I've backed a bunch of projects on Kickstarter, and with each one, of course, I wanted to get a cool book to read, but I also paid a close attention to what they were offering. Try to give some variety of different things I could offer my backers. But yeah, I appreciate that, because we try to put a lot of thought into different things that we could offer our backers, and to try to be generous with those things as well. So
Sure.
Well, let me ask you this, because as I know, some collectors, when they buy something from Kickstarter, they like to have it to be like a special book. So like it has like a Kickstarter logo saying like, I'm the first one to have this particular, issue. Because you said you might sell some at cons later on.
right.
So the ones you sell at cons, are they gonna like have like no Kickstarter like insignia on it, and one, is there going to be a way to tell the difference, or is it going to be the same?
That's actually a very good question, Pope, and I'm gonna call you by your real name, Pope.
Okay.
That's a very good question. We actually have not discussed that or thought of that at all, but you might have given us an idea. I don't know if we'll put some sort of insignia or anything on the front. We might put something on the inside cover. On the inside cover, we'll have like, the credits of the team and the title and whatnot. We might indicate something on the inside cover. But no, we haven't really thought about that, but that's a good thing to think about. So I'm going to take that. I'm going to meet up with Bryce on Thursday, and I'm going to mention that to him and just say, hey, should we do something for, the second wave of printing to show that, you have it, but if you backed it on Kickstarter, you got the actual first print run.
That makes sense. I've seen a lot of people that do that kind of stuff, so it makes sense that,
Okay.
just an example. I don't know if you're familiar with the title Cam in America.
No.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, of course you are. But so they launched their Kickstarter, right? But then they got signed by Antarctic Press.
Oh.
So you have the original books that came out with the Kickstarter, and they're still doing Kickstarters, but the single issue comics are through Antarctic Press now.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
I thought you were going to bring up rags.
No, oh my gosh, that's a whole nother can of worms. That was quite the frenzy, wasn't it? That was an ordeal for a while.
That was nuts.
But anyways, yeah, it was just kind of interesting, because I see a lot of people ask questions like, are these print to order, for example? So like, after your initial wave, is there going to be, like you said, a second wave, or is it just going to be based on what the orders look like, kind of thing? Like, if you have 500 backers that all want the same comic, is it just going to be 100 books and that's it, and then you do a second wave for cons, or that kind of thing? Just sorry, I just Kickstarter's it's a whole interesting thing for me like that.
It is, yeah, but no, I appreciate that input. That's some good advice to take and think about. So we'll definitely consider it.
Yeah, I mean, it's new, right? So that's the whole thing is it's
Right, and that could be. Who knows where Hard Justice will end up? But that could be a a little thank you to our first run of backers. Was like you were the first people to believe in us. Therefore, we're going to indicate that in the book somehow.
sure. I'm sure you'll figure out whatever you need to do.
Yeah, I was just throwing it out there because it's like as a collector, people look for these kind of things, and it's like, and I know, oh my god, like especially with like covers, like what was like one of the biggest ones was it the Delato X-23 cover, like that they did he did a cover, and it was like
Rare.
yeah, it's a rare book, but then they turn around and use that cover again.
Mm-hmm.
But like the people who bought the rare one was just like, what the fuck? Like
What when you asked me that, Sean, the first or Pope, excuse me, the first thing that popped in my head was if you guys have ever read Johnny the Homicidal Maniac.
I'm
Yeah.
familiar with it. Yep.
Yeah. So I think I have a copy of it in my collection, and I think when I open it, on the inside it said 5th printing, like issue 1. I have the 5th printing, and I've picked up another copy somewhere, and I opened up the cover, and it said 22nd printing. So it's like
Well,
it's like
I knew there was a ton of printings for that book, because they just do small print runs every time they print it. I think
exactly.
But that book is really funny. I was watching someone do a collection purchase the other day, and they're flipping through the indie books, and there was a Johnny the Homicidal Maniac in there. I'm like, they don't even know. They don't even know. They just flip right past it like it was. Like, those books are freaking rare. Like But yeah, that's a great title, man. I haven't heard that dropped in a conversation in quite some
yeah,
time.
in a long time.
But yeah, it's interesting. Like it's especially when you're doing the indie thing. Indie books are there are some really rare stuff out there. Because of you're just getting started. You don't have a real idea. Especially the older days, they didn't have Kickstarter, right? So they just printed what they thought. Sometimes it was 100 copies, sometimes it was less. Because you're going to cons, you're handing them out, you're trying to promote it. So, at least with Kickstarter, they do a lot of promotion for you. And there's a lot of eyes on Kickstarter. So I expect this to do well for you. We'll certainly do our part to support you and spread the word. That's my favorite thing to do.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
I do look forward to the variant cover for sure, because that'll be I'm a variant whore. There's no doubt about that. Let's see, the chat kind of blew up, and it came out of nowhere for me. I don't know if you guys saw it. I was just like,
I've been keeping up with it.
I haven't seen it. It just all dropped at one time on my end. I'm like, holy shit.
Oh no, I said hey to Tat. He jumped in and said hello.
So
oh, go ahead.
Do you have like a goal in mind? Like, I mean, I know you said the 5 issues, but is there like a what's your goal to get out of the first round here?
Yes. So our goal for Kickstarter is $3,000. And I'll tell you this. So every bit of the book has been paid for up to this point, except for printing the book and shipping it, obviously. So $3,000 is our goal. If we hit or exceed that amount, then the funds will go towards printing the book, shipping it to all the backers, and then everything else is going towards producing issue 2.
Very cool.
So yeah, I mean, I've sacrificed a lot to get it to this point, and I'm hoping that the sacrifice will pay off. And then again, that with the Kickstarter, with the goal that we have in mind, we don't have to go back and pay our artists to do more or to pay our letterer to finish the book. Everybody's already been paid up, so that if this is successful, we can just keep it and just pour it into issue 2, and then when we do the Kickstarter for issue 2, we'll just pour it into issue 3. Just keep that going.
Sure.
That's the goal.
Well, that was one of the things I was impressed with off camera when we were talking, was the fact that you already have everything just ready to go to print, basically, and then ship it. Like people are going to get their book a lot faster than a lot of other titles out there for sure. So
yeah, and that's another thing. Sorry to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
That's something I've observed on Kickstarter is, I understand that some people do a Kickstarter to hopefully raise the funds to actually get it going.
Mm-hmm.
But talking with some of my friends, they're like, I really like it when something is close to being finished. That way, I back it, and then a few months later, boom, there it is. And of course, if it's closer to being done, or if it's finished at the time of launch, well, then basically they just have to print it and get it to you. Because of course, if you just have an idea, you've got to go through the art process, and there's a whole process to art besides just the art itself, and then getting it to the letterer and everything. So yeah, when Bryce and I sat down to do this, I said, I want to launch this project when we are like in the final stages. I said, I want to wait until we're almost done to launch it. That way we can get people even more excited. Hey, if you back us, you'll get this in a short amount of time. So that was kind of our mindset going into this, is let's do as much work as we can beforehand, before we launch. So
Well, it makes sense. I think it's the right approach. You see the people that do successful, that's kind of their game plan. They have it all streamlined pretty quickly, and that's, like I was telling you, there's one from 2018 I'm still waiting on, and I'm like, I can't wrap my head around that, because it's like, that's 5 years ago and you still haven't wrapped up your book one. Like, and
right.
then you see them launch book two. I mean, who's going to back book two when they haven't even seen any samples of book one? Like, that's just so bizarre to me. But
yeah, and really, if I can plug Blood Force Trauma again, that is done by two guys, Jake Smith and Hiram Corbett. And I think so. They're kickstarting issue 7 right now. I think I discovered it at issue 2, and they're planning to do 8 issues. And they've basically, I think they've had it outlined or storyboarded or something, but they're basically on a rapid fire rollout. So once an issue drops, it's like 3 or 4 months later, boom, the next issue is ready to be kickstarted. So they've kind of been on a consistent basis, which is what we want to emulate for Hard Justice. Is once issue 1 drops, then we're going to go ahead and have issue 2 underway so that we can roll it out before too long.
Yeah, makes sense. So what else do you want to tell us about this book?
What else I want to tell you about this book? Well, so my role in the book is, of course, as the writer, but I've also been focusing a lot of time on, how do I market this? How do I convince people to check it out and give us a chance? So I've also been trying to, I've also been working on a pitch. So if I had to sum up Hard Justice in a few words, it's Lethal Weapon meets Double Dragon. That's my pitch to people if they ask, well, what is it like? And it's like, if you like Lethal Weapon, if you like Double Dragon, we marry the two, and here you go. So
sweet. Starring Mel Gibson and Danny Glover.
Might have to pick someone less controversial than Mel right now, but we'll keep Danny Glover. So,
well, you're not going to watch Passion of the Christ Part 2?
No.
Well, Mel would definitely get eyes on your project. So,
you're not looking for.
There's no such thing as bad publicity, right?
Right. Yeah, I guess. There is one other thing I could say. So I said 3,000 is the goal. Of course, we have some stretch goals in mind. Okay. So we've got things planned. Well, for instance, the story is 33 pages. We got 3 pages to play with. I'm going to have this outlined on the page, but the first stretch goal is, I think the first stretch goal is $3,250, but at that point we'll do a poll and our backers can choose what kind of behind the scenes content they want to see in the book. We've got more stickers and pinups planned, but one of the higher stretch goals, I don't have my notes in front of me to know how much we have to reach in order to get this, but I do have a prototype of a Hard Justice collector coin 3D printed. So you can't really see it because it's one color, but it's going to have the hat logo that you can see. It'll have that logo on a 3D printed coin. That's one of the stretch goals we have in mind. So, and actually, when you get the coin, it'll have the logo on one side, and you flip it over, it'll have a QR code that you can scan to always stay up to date on Hard Justice.
Oh, that's smart. That's pretty cool.
That is really cool. That's something extra added. And sometimes the stretch goals are interesting, like what the incentive. Like that's a pretty fun incentive.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm on Kickstarter right now. I'm just watching the countdown here. If anyone doesn't believe me, I don't know if you can see them with my green screen or not, but it's there.
No, we can't.
There's a lot of times you can go in and bookmark it, to back it later, but it just tells me content's not available right now.
Yeah, but that's a good point that you bring up, JP. So for those of you who are watching or who watch this afterward, if you go to www.hardjusticecomic.com, that'll direct you straight to our Kickstarter page. So if you pull that up now, you'll see the pre-launch page, but you can hit the notify button to get that alert when we launch tomorrow. But that website will stay up throughout the whole campaign. Hardjusticecomic.com will take you straight to our Kickstarter page. And once we go live, I didn't realize this until recently, but once we go live tomorrow at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, you'll be able to see the promo video that we shot for Hard Justice. So right now it's just an image of the book, but then when the campaign goes live, there's a really cool video that Bryce and I we had produced by a buddy of ours named Perry Wesley. But it's a video to show more about the book, more about the rewards, but most importantly, you get to see mine and Bryce's face and hear us talk about it. So you'll be able to see that when we launch tomorrow.
I'm super excited.
Yeah,
I'm glad someone is. I mean, don't get me wrong, I am excited, but I'm also very, very nervous because one, I've never done this before, and then two, of course, obviously we want to hit that goal. So I'm going to be stressed out for the next 30 days.
So I was going to ask you if it was running for 30 days or not. So
yes.
That's a pretty smart one.
Yeah, and that's just looking at other campaigns on Kickstarter. 30 days seems to be, and I think there's some science behind that. Like 30 days is like the best time to run a campaign. I've seen some go longer, and I've also seen some run in like half that time, which is mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, that's mind-boggling. Yeah, to me, like I think 30 days, especially if you like let people know it's going to happen before then, like you're doing. That's like 2 paychecks that people can be like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and a buddy of mine pointed that out because he was like, because we launch tomorrow's March 1st. We launch March 1st, 30 days, and on March 31st. He messaged me today. He was like, I'm excited because he gets paid on the 5th on the 15th and the last day of each month. And he was like, I got paid today. I'm saving part of my paycheck for your thing tomorrow. But then we run 30 days, so people will get 2 paychecks in that time to hopefully give us a small piece of that for Hard Justice.
Yeah, for sure. And the cool thing with Kickstarter is it doesn't charge right away, so people need to know that you can back tomorrow. It doesn't come out of your bank account until the project is backed and fulfilled. So I always go in when I see a project I like, I go skim everything, I back it, and then depending on how money goes, I can do more add-ons. Like that's kind of how I do. I drive for DoorDash at night to pay for my comics, so
Yeah, and another thing we did too was that we asked for shipping up front. There will be a small shipping charge, obviously, but I know of all the Kickstarters I backed, there was one, I don't remember the name of it. I'm not going to say it anyway if I did, but I backed it, and then the Kickstarter was successful. They collected my money, and then it was like 6 months later when the project was ready to ship. They used some third-party service to message everybody. And they're like, oh, hey, the project's ready to be sent out, but now we have to ask you for more money to ship it. So then I had to pay shipping, months later. It's like, I thought we already took care of this, but no, they didn't do that on the front end. So I almost missed this, But luckily I caught it, and Bryce and I sat down and was like, okay, based on these tiers and everything that we're giving our backers, how much should we charge for shipping on the front end? So, and again, we tried to be competitive and keep low costs in mind with all of our tiers. So we do charge shipping up front, but again, we were pretty conscientious of how much we were asking for from our backers.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, I had the same thing happen. It was like I get this backer kit survey, and you got to pay $8 for shipping, and I'm like,
yep,
okay, like that's weird. I feel like I already did this, but here's your $8. I can have my books I already paid for.
Yeah,
I always check on that because a lot of times they'll tell you, whether like shipping is, what it is before you go it out, but like. There's very few that I've backed that they still added on the shipping, but they didn't wait till later to tell you like, oh, surprise.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at the beginning, so you know the full amount.
Right. So, I mean, once you hit that launch button on your campaign, there's very little you can change once it's live.
Makes sense.
So I have picked apart that reward tier page and the pre-launch stuff. I've gone over that, so many times I could see it with my eyes closed, just to make sure that everything is laid out as we want it and I didn't miss anything. So, because the last thing I want to do is launch it and realize something and say, oops, and then be like, oh, I can't fix it. So we were very careful in putting this together.
Well, you got to be meticulous, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, cool, man. Yeah, I'm just ready for tomorrow already. So
me too.
Hopefully we can see this thing funded fairly quickly. But yeah, you got any more questions, Sean, or Pope, or G Pope Sean?
G Pope Sean. No, I've just been trying to hold back from telling college day stories.
Oh gosh.
Well, so I guess as a comic collector, what does your collection look like? Like, what do you aside from?
Ooh.
That's a good question. Okay, so when I said that I got into comics not too long ago. I was like my late 20s, early 30s. But so what actually happened was my parents had inherited some belongings from a relative probably when I was maybe middle school, but we got this stuff and basically put it in our basement, and it stayed there for years. And then when in my late 20s, my dad was finally like, we need to go through this stuff and get rid of it, do something with it. Well, they were going through these boxes and they found 2 short boxes of comics.
Oh man.
And nothing spectacular, but one short box was Batman and the other short box was Amazing Spider-Man. And I remember as a little kid, I thought I had it right here. I had one of these small paperbacks. It was a collection of Amazing Spider-Man 1 through 6, like the 1960, the Volume 1 Stan Lee stuff. And I don't know how many times I read that book. So when I opened the short box and found Amazing Spider-Man, I was like, oh, this is awesome. It was issue 200 through 300, within that range, not those issues, but within that range is what the box was. And I was flipping through it, and I was like, you know what? I want to start filling in these gaps. And of course, I was completely brand new to collecting comics. But I found this box of comics, and I called up Sean, and I was like, hey, man, I got this box of comics, this Amazing Spider-Man. I want to find some more. How do I do this? So Sean took me to the comic shop just up the road from us. I say up the road. It was like 20 minutes up the road. Next big town over. But Sean took me up the road to the shop, and I met the owner. They didn't have the issues I was looking for. And Sean was like, there's other comic shops around. And I was like, really? I didn't know this. So then I hopped on the phone and called one that was like an hour away. And I asked him, I was like, do you have this specific issue of Amazing Spider-Man? They're like, oh, yeah, we have it. And I told Sean, I was like, oh, they have it. And he was like, well, let's go. So then we got in Sean's car and we drove an hour down the highway to another shop, and they had it. So that just kind of gave me that bug. So all that to say, I am working on a collection of Amazing Spider-Man. Volume 1 has 742 issues, and I have 39 left to finish that run. I do have, so I've talked about Ron Mars. I do have a complete Volume 3 collection of Green Lantern, which was fun because the fun thing about that collection was I bought every book in that collection, but I did not use the internet to find those books. I basically went to shops, went to flea markets, went to conventions to build that run. And I'll probably never get rid of it because of all the work I had to put into.
Yeah, for sure.
All those dollar bins.
Yeah, all the dollar bins. But yeah, as far as collecting, it's Amazing Spider-Man, Green Lantern, Volume 3, which is already done. But then I'm very picky about my modern books. But I do collect some recent issues and some modern stuff. So.
Well, Tat Comics wants to know, what was the first comic you bought, or what character do you really connect with?
Oh, the first comic I ever bought? Oh, that's a good question, Tat. Okay, first comic I ever bought. First comic. It was probably that Amazing Spider-Man issue. I don't remember the issue number, but there was a storyline in Amazing Spider-Man in I think it was like issue 320 to 326, and it was the Assassin Nation plot. The covers were drawn by Todd McFarlane, so it was part of that McFarlane run in Amazing Spider-Man. But there were 6 issues in that overarching story, and I think I was missing part 5. I remember it had Sabretooth on the cover, but that was the issue I was missing. I think that was the first comic I ever bought. And as far as the first, or what character do you really connect with? Going back to Ron Mars and Green Lantern, I really connect with Kyle Rayner. Kyle Rayner showed up in issue. Well, I think he was teased in 48. He was part of the Emerald Twilight storyline. But then he really has his appearance in issue 51 because now he is the Green Lantern, the only Green Lantern. But I really connect with Kyle because when we're introduced to Kyle, we're also introduced to his girlfriend, and the relationship he had with his girlfriend, just the back and forth that they had between each other. As I was reading this, I felt like I was reading a story about myself, just the back and forth he does with his girlfriend. I have a panel in a frame over here, but it's Kyle Rayner flying through the sky, and his balloon says, "Here comes Green Lantern," and his girlfriend's on the ground, and she goes, "Oh, great!" that perfectly captures, just the relationship I have with my wife. So, sometimes I can be out there, and she's always pulling me back down to earth. Like, okay, let's get real for a moment.
You got to keep you grounded, right?
Exactly. She keeps me grounded. So,
you would be doing a disservice with your appreciation for Ron Mars if you didn't talk about the wonderful cross-gen time.
Oh, honestly, that's a deep dive I need to explore. Marvel actually released a collection of cross-gen stories. They did like a big, I would call it an annual just because of the amount of pages, but they released 4 issues of four number 1 issues of cross-gen in a big thick book.
Okay.
That they released that within the last year or so. And it collected, some of his stuff in there. So I picked it up. And I think I read one of the 4 stories in it, but I need to go back and finish the rest.
He wrote Sojourn, the Sojourn story line.
That's in there. That's one of them. Yeah.
And that appealed to me because of the Dungeons and Dragons, Lord of the Ring, that kind of that Middle Earth type feel to me as I don't know how old I was when that came out, like late 90s, so I was in my 20s, I suppose. But also Ruse was written by Mark Waid, and that was a really cool story.
I do remember in that cross-gen reprint that they did, there's like a 2-page letter that Ron wrote about how he became part of the cross-gen team and just talking about his time there. So that was just as fascinating as the stories itself, was just hearing about his firsthand account of being part of cross-gen.
Well, it was so like, I mean, this is short, a few years after Image started, so then you had that group of obviously talented artists that broke off. And then I think with CrossGen, you had the writers who were trying to kind of do the same thing.
Exactly.
It just, whatever happened. I mean, they had some good stuff. They did have some good stories. I really enjoyed those two in particular. I mean, those are, I can still remember them 20 something years later. So
yeah.
Ruse was set in like kind of like a Jack the Ripper era.
I'll say, yeah. I enjoyed Ruse, yeah.
Yeah. But anyways, yeah, it was just the whole night has been going through Ron Mars, going through my head, and I'm like, cross-gen. Like, that's what I remember, the most of for Ron Mars. But I didn't realize that he had wrote that. Did he write the Emerald Twilight run?
Yes.
Yeah. So that was
he wrote the Emerald Twilight run, and then issues after that. So of course he wrote the infamous Fridge issue. Have you heard about that?
Yep.
Oh
yeah. So actually, if I could go on a sidebar here, I know the Fridge issue gets a lot of attention, hype, but he wrote in that run issue 109. The story is called, I think it's called
What's in the Box?
It's Ghosts of Christmas Past, and if I remember correctly, the story is about Jade, who's another Green Lantern, but it's about Jade running into a mall Santa that abused her as a child.
Oh wow!
I laughed too early, didn't I?
Yeah,
you laughed a little bit early. But it's about that. It's about her coming to grips, like she's facing her abuser, and of course,
Santa.
back then she was a child. Now she's a Green Lantern. She has all this power. I mean, she could basically just like blow this dude away.
I thought you were gonna say now she's a Red Lantern.
Oh,
that would have been awesome.
I mean, of course, the Fridge issue. I mean, of course, it's oh my gosh, but I felt more inner turmoil reading that issue that he wrote than I did the Fridge issue. So
that's awesome. That's yeah. I'll forever remember what got me into comics, because I did not have a traditional path to comics. I grew up in the backwoods of Texas, so we didn't. I didn't have a local shop. I didn't have a local anything. We got to go to town once a month with my stepmom, go get groceries or whatever. I mean, I grew up on a farm, so it was whenever they were out of alphabet cereal, we had to go to town. So, anyways, yeah, I was like 15. Dude at a gas station was selling comics out of his trunk.
Oh, nice.
And that was what got me started. I was like, I'll check out the Deadpool. Deadpool with Circle Chase #1. The embossed cover.
Oh yeah. I think when I was a kid, I remember seeing Wizard magazine. Like other kids had Wizard.
Mm-hmm.
I remember seeing that and flipping through that, but that didn't get me into comics at that time. I had to wait years later. So
yeah, it just what's up, Tony? Good to see you. Yeah, it's just kind of we all have our origin story in comics. Like I just my dad, my family was not wasn't that family. It was farm life, and that was it. So it was just pretty wild. But the stuff that we remember, that really connected with us, and for me, obviously, it was Deadpool, just because it was a fucked up character, and I was like, hey, I'm kind of like that too. So
I like chimichangas.
Did you carry a sword around, JP?
What's that?
Did you carry a sword?
You carry two.
I got at one of those little shops in the mall that sell. We had one that sold like the throwing stars. So
Right.
me and my buddy would save our lawnmower money and go buy throwing stars like we needed them. I don't know. There you go.
Hope these guys taken care of.
We had well, it's just a wild childhood, but you know, my best friend's dad took ninja training very literal with us. Like he made homemade throwing stars that were like 5 pounds. You know, they stuck something, it wasn't going anywhere. Like, dang, you gotta have a wicked forearm just to get that thing going. But
only a ninja can sneak up on another ninja.
it was, I honestly wouldn't trade my childhood for anything. Like, people, you know, I have no regrets. Like, it wasn't the perfect life. No one has a perfect life, but it was certainly memorable.
Sure.
My kids will never
Scars,
know.
man, scars.
But yeah, I look forward to this, man. This is going to be I hope a big deal. So I hope that tomorrow, 12:30 Eastern time, you guys that watch or watching, keep your eyes open. Search Hard Justice in the Kickstarter search bar. It works. I just tried it out earlier, so I know it pops up right away. So just, you know, I never know on your guys' side of the Kickstarter how it works for y'all, but you know, sometimes if you don't get the exact title right, or it isn't like eBay where it might suggest you, hey, you meant this title, right?
You
Because
don't know how to spell, dumbass.
But anyways, it's there. It's be live tomorrow, so you guys go and give this man some support. Share it around your circles if you could. That would be awesome. Do you have an IG account by chance?
I do. So, excuse me. If you're on Twitter or Instagram, my handle is the same. It's at Wes Writes Stuff.
Wes Writes Stuff.
The man writes stuff.
Yep.
All right. Well, I'll have to hit you up for a follow then.
Absolutely.
We'll share it around. Absolutely do that. Kickstarter's the way to go. I'm excited. Any parting shots before we wrap up?
Oh, what's that?
You have anything you want to end with? We're about to wrap up here, so if there's anything you want
to... guys, thank you so much. This has been fun. It's always great to chat with like comic book minds. And yeah, Hard Justice on Kickstarter, hardjusticecomic.com. Thank you so much.
First 10 backers get a pair of brass knuckles.
I was about to say that. I was like, brass knuckles.
Sorry, I'm gonna have to wheel and deal to get a set of those suckers.
We'll see what we can do.
All right, man. Well, appreciate you being on with us, and good luck with your Kickstarter. And we're gonna have a lot of fun with it, I hope.
Yep. Thanks again, guys. Appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you guys for watching tonight. We'll see you at a different time whenever Pope and I feel like it.
Whatever happens.
Yep, whatever happens. Thanks again, guys. Y'all have a great night. Bye-bye.
Bye.